If you want to automate workflows in your business, but don't understand the difference between APIs, webhooks, and MCPs, keep listening because this episode is for you.
Welcome to Automate Your Agency. Every week, we bring you expert insights, practical tips, and success stories that will help you streamline your business operations and boost your growth. Let's get started on your journey to more efficient and scalable operations. These really are the basics of automation that I find myself talking about almost on a daily basis with people, especially if they're asking me like, can we build an agent for that? Can we do an automation? And I'm like, well, what software are you using? Does it have API capabilities? What does this look like?
It's the first question for everything, right? Like, well, I don't know. Can we build an automation? Can you build an agent for it? The only way we can is, or the only way anybody can, is if the platforms that they're using have APIs, webhooks, or MCPs.
So, Micah, why don't you explain? And I like the way that you've worded these in the past is what's an API, a webhook, and an MCP?
Sure. So an API, you can think of like an API when you need to ask for something. So one system or an agent or an automation needs to ask for something. Webhooks are for like when you're listening, you're waiting for something to happen. And MCPs are kind of like they're designed specifically for AI and agents, but it's almost for like delegating. And so maybe it'd be helpful if we went into each of those in detail.
Yeah. And let me just say, like, the way that I think of it from just the most basic concept of what these three are, it's how software can talk to each other.
Totally. That's
And
a
that's
really
like
good way to
at the
put
end
it.
of the day, that's all you need is you need software to be able to talk outside of it's with like Pipedrive CRM. If it could only work within Pipedrive, that's a very limiting software. It can't communicate outside of itself. And so we couldn't build an automation with it. Now, it does have these capabilities. And so it becomes a very useful software because it can communicate outside of itself with the use of APIs and webhooks.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, Pipedrive's APIs are top notch. But
Yeah. Good
there are,
example.
there's a ton of CRMs that we run into with people that we talk to, companies and founders that we work with, where they're like, I'm using this CRM and I can't find, I want to automate. I want to integrate with it. I want to do these things with it. And the first question we ask is, does it have an API? And they're like, I don't know. And then
Mhm.
we look at it together, and sure enough, no API. And that's pretty much a roadblock. That's well, you might
Right.
need to
There's
use
nothing
this.
we can do to fix that.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
just not going to work.
yeah. All right. So an API is, again, let me ask for data or I want to make something happen. So examples would be, let me get the last 100 customers that were added to the CRM, or let me create a new invoice in QuickBooks or Xero, or let me update this deal record in a CRM, or let me update this task or project in Asana or ClickUp or Monday. All of those are one system to another and asking to do something, or let me make something happen, or let me get some data or some information. And the
Mhm.
only way you can do any of that, and you can't just invent, oh, I want it to do this because it has an API. It has to have the API endpoints, which are the actual actions that you can take. And so if it has an API and it's super limited, you're
There's nothing you
limited.
can do with it.
Yeah,
Or
you're limited by the
there's limited
API.
things you can do with it. And
Yes.
that's one thing that I think is a harder concept to understand because you're like, do a quick Google, you see that the software that you're using does have an API, and you're going, all right, we're good. And that's the start, but you're limited to what is available in the API to be able to work with. So
Yep.
that would be the next layer down. It's like, okay, well, what data are you trying to get out of it? Can it send that data? Can it communicate like that? And so that would be the next layer of capabilities with the software.
Yeah. And I would say we get questions like, well, I'm working with the team who's making this software. Maybe I can just ask them to make the API. You can
Sure.
ask them. It might go
Right.
in the development backlog, but the reality is probably not going to happen because it's a lot of work making APIs on the development side.
Hmm. Yeah, it isn't just a quick fix. And even if you do have an inside channel with a team, like you said, it would be added to a backlog. Sometimes they wait for a number of votes. Just because it's your priority doesn't mean it's their priority.
Yep, absolutely.
So, Micah, then I also hear you say, and this is, I see them when we build things. So, one of your like massive marketing agents that we have is all from webhooks, and I think it's listening from stuff from Airtable, maybe.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I'll even hear you say, it's like, well, for this, we don't necessarily have to have an API if we could just use a webhook.
Yeah. So a webhook is kind of a part. It's different than an API, but it's like hand in hand. It's like the other side of the coin. So where an API you want to like request things to happen or create new things in a platform, a webhook is like I'm just going to wait for something to happen, or the webhook actually tells me or tells the agent or tells the automation when something happened. And so if we didn't have webhooks, and years ago we didn't, we would have to have an API and we would have to go, hey, any new deals come into the
It has to
CRM
be
yet?
constantly checking.
Like every 5 minutes or every
Yeah.
15 minutes or every hour, like, hey, any new deals? Any new deals? Any like huge waste of resources, very poor design. You don't want to just have something sitting there doing this over and over and over again.
Right.
That's what webhooks solve. So instead of the API over and over, you're legitimately having an agent or a workflow that just sits there and goes, I'm going to chill. You tell me when a new deal comes in. And when that happens, cool. Like, then I'll take some action. Otherwise, I'm just going to be sitting here drinking my virtual Mai Tai.
Yeah. So what really happened is it could be a real trigger. It wasn't that it had to keep checking for the trigger. It
Yep.
could really be like, oh, this field and Airtable just got changed. And the webhook heard it happen. And it could run that trigger and run that automation.
Yeah, and what it's actually doing is sending data, what's called a payload technically, to the automation or to the agent to give it that contextual information. So, a couple examples would be, hey, a payment came in on Stripe. Cool. That triggers a webhook, and the information that it sends is, well, who's the customer? What's their email? What's the ID of the transaction? All the stuff, or most of the stuff that an automation or an agent would need to go, ah, I can handle this from here. I know what to do from here. Or
Mhm.
say a new user signed up on your community, or something in a form happened, or a file finished uploading or processing. Those are all events that happen in one system that can transmit a webhook to an automation, to an agent, to something that would actually be able to take that information and take action on it. Now, again, the webhook has to exist. You cannot invent webhooks with wishful thinking and hope like, well,
Mhm.
I hope this happens.
These two things are really important because a lot of the conversations I have, and Micah, you know, you might be having them as well, where a company isn't sure what their tech is going to be yet. They're basically looking to say, I need a CRM or I need this software for this. And what am I looking for? These are the two key components when you're vetting software that you want to validate that they have an API with API docs and they have endpoints. If there's only
Yep,
two endpoints, highly unlikely that it's going to be really usable.
totally. And this is so important these days because if you have older software that doesn't have this, you're not integrating with it. You're not using AI. You're not staying competitive. When you're picking new software, like you're saying, Elaine, it has to have this stuff and it has to be capable enough for you to leverage AI, for you to make automation, for you to build these workflows. Otherwise, you're stuck with manual processes while your competitors have picked software that have these things and are
Hmm.
quickly automating the busy work.
Yeah. Then you're going to always have to have people pull data out, and you're not going to be able to put it as part of an automated workflow. So, Mike, I've been hearing things about MCPs, and where does this fit in with APIs and webhooks?
Yeah, so MCP is Model Context Protocol. And I guess we should say what API stands for,
Sure.
Application Programming Interface. We're
It
not going to
really
quiz
clears
you.
everything
Who
up.
cares, right? It is the just acronyms drive me nuts these days. And I come from a tech background, but who cares? It's an API, it's an MCP. MCP is like an AI version of an API. It's a way that AI agents can connect to other things like an API, but it gives tools and extra context to the AI models to be able to make better decisions without you having to spell everything out. But MCPs are pretty new. They came out a couple years ago. Most agents and most integrations that you're going to do are still API based. So if it has an MCP, great. If it doesn't, but it has an API, fantastic. Still
Yeah,
works.
you're still golden. Yeah, that's what I was, even wondering is because this is such a new piece of technology, how many software platforms have even gotten there to have this available?
Yeah, I mean, we're still in the world where some software doesn't even have an API, let alone
Right. So
webhooks.
much less a MCP.
And sometimes, and I've seen this, I can't think of which software I saw this last on, but they've kind of jumped past APIs and went straight to MCP. Cool. As long as you know what you're looking for, then you can start understanding, is this software worth buying? Is this subscription worth it? Can I integrate it? What would that mean for my automated workflows in my business?
Mhm. What are the automation platforms like N8N? Do they I mean, I know APIs and webhooks are available in N8N and Make and Zapier, but are MCPs already a part of I'm assuming already a part of N8N. Do you know if they're also available to integrate within Make and Zapier?
Make and Zapier, I don't know off the top of my head. N8N, 100%. They introduced that months and months ago. I believe they were the first to introduce it, just like they were the first to introduce agents. And so they made it, with N8N, it's possible to connect to an existing, what's called an MCP server.
Mm,
And so you basically take your agent, you give it an MCP tool, and then that connects to the MCP server on the platform that you want to integrate with. And then you just pick what you want the agent to be able to do with it. And that's kind of it. It's really incredible.
that's super cool. It's really the next version of automation. Like people always say, like, what's next? Like this will be the next piece of building automation and agents.
Yeah. Yeah. And, we talk a lot about in this episode, if it doesn't have an API, you're kind of SOL, but there are some workarounds. They're not great and they're usually manual. So Lane, I thought it would be just worth mentioning, like you could have a VA export stuff manually into a spreadsheet and then put that in Google Drive and feed that to your agent or your
Mm.
integration. So you might be able to automate 50% of that, but there's still that first manual step. And without MCPs, without webhooks, and without APIs, there's usually something like that where it's like, okay, we have to get the data somehow. Maybe AI and maybe automation can help us transform that data, and
Mhm.
then it's ready for a workflow. So
I'm glad you actually said that because even thinking about some of the ones that I've been a part of with ones that we built for clients, that was the workaround. And maybe it's a really industry specific software platform and there's just no other options and it is what it is, but you want to be able to pull data out. And that CSV one is probably the most common one that I've seen is like, okay, well, it doesn't mean
yeah.
that nothing can be automated. It just can't be automated with a trigger that's not a person.
Yes. Yes, exactly right. And I think maybe to wrap up this episode, Elaine, the final mention or the final thought of all of this is, how do you determine if it has APIs, if it has the right endpoints and the actions that it can take, and whether it has webhooks and MCPs or, all three
Mhm.
possibly. And the easiest way to do it is to Google it.
Mhm.
But the old school way is Google it and read the API docs.
Yeah.
but those are written for developers. And yeah, I'll admit, like, it takes practice to even understand where the hell am I going to go in this API doc to figure out what the hell I'm looking at.
Yeah, it's not
So
a fun read. It's pretty bland.
yeah. Yeah. The alternative is let AI do the work for you. Ask Gemini, ask ChatGPT, ask Claude to search the web. This part's important. Search the web and find the API docs or the API endpoints or the webhooks or the MCP servers for the platforms that you have or are thinking about buying. But make sure it cites the actual links so that you can click on them and see, yes, this is real. Because this is one area where AI is like, I think it can do this. I'm
Mhm.
just going to say it can.
Right. It will make things up. It will give you false information. Just like we would say, "Hey, I saw it on TV," and our parents would be like, "You can't believe everything on TV." Is that you've gotta verify that if it says there's an API endpoint for that, that you do go and double check that it's accurate.
Are you telling me the sham wow does not work as effectively as they led me to believe?
The ShamWow definitely works.
Okay. Whew.
They weren't lying on TV.
Thank
That one's
God.
true.
Yes.